Before I start this video, I must preface this by saying that this is just my opinion. You're very likely going to disagree, and just like all of my other videos, let me know your hot takes in the comments below. But anyways, onto the list. And with the first one, I'm going to start off a bit mild. And this is that the show should have never gone past 5 seasons. I've someone mentioned this or alluded to this in multiple videos, and the main reason for this is that the show genuinely felt aimless after season 5. In fact, after season 4. Now don't get me wrong, season 4 was not a great season. The last good season of the Vampire Diaries was in season 3. Although yes, like I said earlier on, season 4 isn't really a great season, but it at least had an objective, not only for the story but also for the characters. A lot of things about the characters, their relationships, the way they view the world, a lot of it changed because of season 4. Season 4 had a lot of impact, so if you remove season 4, then a large chunk of the story wouldn't really make any sense. However, if you remove season 7 and season 8, nothing really changes. They are both that bad. In fact, not only are they that bad, they don't serve a point, as in they don't serve a purpose. None of the characters change. You can describe everything about Damon's character with regards to the end of season 8 just by watching him in season 6. You don't need to watch season 7 or season 8 to know exactly how Damon turned out as a character, because he didn't change, and neither did Stefan or Klaroline or Bonnie, or in fact any other character. And every single new character was terrible and made no impact. So all in all, if I were to edit it out, I would have just axed season 7, axed most of season 8, only keep Cade and obviously Catherine at the end of the show. I'm going to half season 6. The only thing I will keep is the stuff for Kai and obviously the stuff for Damon and Bonnie. And then finally in season 5, I would only keep the Silas storyline, which is the first part of the season, and then move it to season 4. And then obviously delete the rest of the Traveler stuff because it's terrible and it's very forgettable. Meaning that season 6 and the end of season 8 will now be season 5. And then obviously the rest of the show will stay somewhat the same. Although I believe that Cade should have been an overarching villain from season 3. We should have known about Cade for a while, because he's way too powerful and way too big of a villain to only exist for a few episodes, which is what actually happened in the canon. And now on to my second one, which is that season 7 and season 8 would have still been awful even if Elena was there. I have no idea why people actually believe otherwise. There are 3 characters with the it factor to pull that off, and Elena isn't one of them. In fact, one of them was in both seasons. Obviously the 3 I'm referring to are Catherine, Klaus and Damon. Damon obviously was in both season 7 and season 8 in its entirety, and even with him there, it was still that bad. Elena is not interesting enough to be able to pull that off. In fact, Elena hasn't led a season since season 2, in which that season was great. She didn't really lead season 3. That was mostly Stefan and Klaus. If Damon couldn't save season 7, there was no reason to believe that Elena could have. I don't even think Catherine could. I think Klaus made it interesting, but not even he can. Season 7 was that bad. Season 8 might have been salvageable, but not season 7. There was no impact, the writing was at its worst, all the characters were at their worst, the acting was at its worst, the villains were at their worst. There was literally no end goal in season 7. The season just looked like they were winging it. Nobody can save that season. It was that bad. Season 7 was really that bad. Season 8 wasn't as bad as season 7, but again, Elena wouldn't be able to add much to that season. And now on to my third one, which is that relationships, or the benefit to the show with regards to growing its popularity, relationships ruin the show. More specifically, ruin the characters. I have talked about this so many times because I've done a lot of character deep dives in which the characters were ruined because of relationships. And this is mainly because the show insists on making sure that every single main character is in a relationship, even when it's very evident that the characters work best on their own. In fact, the best storylines with regards to relationships are either platonic or just flat out enemies. Damon and Stefan, Klaus and Stefan, Klaus and Elena, Damon and Bonnie, Damon and Rose. Yes, they slept together once, but that really wasn't a romantic relationship. And then you have Klaus and Rebecca, and then finally you have Elena and Catherine. The best seasons and the best storyline were fueled by these relationships, but the show just slowly started ignoring that blueprint. It got to the point in which almost every single character was nearly ruined by a relationship. Delena didn't really ruin Damon, but it definitely ruined Elena. Everything negative that you can think about Elena stemmed from this relationship. And then obviously you have Stefan with Delena versus Delena. He lost, and then they just grabbed him from that storyline and then just slapped him into a relationship with Klaroline. Why? Because they were friends at one point. And obviously, like I said earlier on, the show don't really do platonic relationships. And speaking of Klaroline, they made her sleep with Klaus. It served zero purpose in her character. It didn't benefit her at all. It was just flat out negatives. The only thing that come from it is just cheap fan service and ruining Karoline's character. It got to the point in which Klaroline was mad at Tyler for being obviously angry, justifiably mind you, and she basically told Tyler that, hey, I know Klaus drowned your mother to death and killed some of your friends, but this happened, deal with it.
Your hybrid bike just killed someone and no one even batted an eye. I sleep with the wrong guy weeks ago and I don't hear the end of it. How is that fair?
I don't know, Care. Maybe people just expect more from you.
Why? Because being good comes so easy to me? Well, guess what, Tyler? It doesn't. I am a vampire. I have the same impulses as you, so I'm allowed to make some mistakes along the way. Yes, I slept with Klaus, but after you walked away from me. That was my choice, and I am living with it. And I don't need to be hearing about it every 5 seconds. So just get over it. Or get out of my life, but I'm done feeling guilty.
Number 4. There is absolutely no reason for anyone to ship Klaroline and hate Delena, and obviously vice versa. It genuinely makes no sense because both couples are in the exact same boat. Now what I'm talking about is not based on what canonically happened, because canonically, Klaroline handled the fact that her friends don't particularly like Klaus, so she shouldn't particularly like Klaus even though she really wants to. Although yes, they made her sleep with Klaus, which was a stupid decision and it nearly ruined Karoline's character. She never really got together, got married and had children for him. Elena did that, even though really and truly Damon did some messed up things. More specifically, to Elena's friends, and Elena is fully aware of this. In fact, Damon killed her brother in front of her face, and again, she still ended up with Damon anyways. Now obviously I'm not talking about what happened canonically, I am referring to the ship, as in the people that wanted Klaroline to end up with Klaus, and the people that wanted Elena to end up with Damon. Both couples are in the exact same boat. If you want Klaroline and Klaus to be endgame, there is no reason for you to hate Delena, because Klaus and Damon are awful people. They've done awful things to the people that Elena and Klaroline care for. So every single argument I can have for Delena not being a good couple, that exact same argument can be used on Klaroline, and obviously vice versa. Number 5. Klaroline, Bonnie and Elena is one of the worst friendships I've ever seen on television. Like, the fact that they actually stayed friends throughout the entire show is the most unbelievable thing in the entire show. Not vampires existing, not psychics existing, not compulsion, not super speed, not super strength. Not the fact that there were so many gas leaks in Mystic Falls and there were so many animal attacks in Mystic Falls and people were still living there. No, this friendship lasting that long is the most unbelievable thing in the entire show. The rap sheet between these three is insane. I'll begin to list off some things. Bonnie decided to not deactivate the Gilbert device, which led to Klaroline being hospitalized, dying and becoming a vampire, and then Bonnie hated her because she was a vampire. Bonnie manipulates a situation in which Klaroline was forced to kill 12 people. Yes, 12. Bonnie along with Klaroline didn't know that Catherine was in Elena's body. Although yes, this is a plot hole, but canonically speaking, this happened. And then you have Klaroline who slept with Klaus. I don't really need to tell you exactly why that's bad. Then she decided to steal Elena's boyfriend. She missed of course because Stefan curbed her. And then she decided to go for the boyfriend's brother. However, even with all of this, I would say that Klaroline is probably the reason why this relationship lasted that long. Klaroline acts more like an older sister to 2 younger siblings. If she doesn't exist, then I'm pretty sure this relationship would not work. The 2 younger siblings would probably kill each other or never speak to each other again. Klaroline feels that the only person that's genuinely there because she loves her friends. The other 2 just feels that they're morally obliged to be friends, especially by the later seasons. And then finally you have Elena, who somehow has a bigger rap sheet than both Klaroline and Bonnie combined. With Elena, she compelled Jeremy to leave town without telling Bonnie, you know, the girlfriend. God forbid anyone dares take a decision away from her. And obviously you have her trying to befriend Damon, and then later on she began dating Damon, which just like Klaus, he did some messed up things to Klaroline and to Bonnie. And if you're confused as to what he did to Bonnie, bear in mind that the reason why Bonnie hated vampires is because Damon is the leading cause as to why her grandma died. In fact, it started with Damon nearly killing Elena, but Elena forgot about that in 10 seconds and it was confused as to why Bonnie didn't want to be in her presence, knowing full well who is in her presence. Elena also said and did some messed up things with Klaroline while her humanity was off and didn't apologize when her humanity came back on. Oh yeah, and they somehow didn't know that Bonnie died for 3 months. In fact, they only discovered this when they needed a spell, and then they remember that Bonnie's a witch, just to find out that Bonnie's been dead for 3 months. They didn't find out when Bonnie didn't show up to her father's funeral. Yes, the same guy that raised her They didn't find that suspicious. The only time they were really pushy about it was when they needed Bonnie for something. Now, don't get me wrong, throughout the show, they do show some good friendship moments, but that was scattered in between really bad decision making that should have ended this friendship long before the show was finished. Number 6. Klaroline and Elena are just as controlling as each other. Both of them are judgmental, and both of them are opinionated. But the reason why people believe that Klaroline is controlling and Elena isn't is because Karoline's opinionated nature is primarily directed towards Elena, as in most of her opinions and advice are given to Elena. Klaroline is very judgmental of Elena's decision making. However, Elena, although isn't really judgmental towards Klaroline, she is however judgmental and controlling to everyone else. She was mad at Damon for sleeping with Rebecca because she doesn't like Rebecca. She was mad at Stefan for being with Rebecca because again, she doesn't like Rebecca. She was mad at Stefan for being with Katia because again, she doesn't like Katia. And not to mention, she had Jeremy compelled on 2 separate occasions, against his will, to do something that he doesn't want to do. Number 7. Kai and Silas were not great characters. They were just entertaining. That's it. I don't know why I need to keep telling people this, but for some reason, whenever I do rankings of villains, a lot of people say, why is Kai not in the top 3? Or why is Silas not in the top 3? Where's Silas? Where's Kai? If I'm doing it solely based on writing, they barely crack the top 10. And this is because, like I said, they're not really well written. They are just entertaining. And this is mainly because the actors that played them are really funny, charismatic, entertaining, and so on. And the reason why you probably like them is because they're entertaining. Not because they're deep fleshed out characters, but again, they're just entertaining. Most of the things that are complex about Kai are not even in the show. A lot of those scenes were deleted for some reason. And Silas' storyline is as simplistic as a 2-year-old drawing an umbrella. And not to mention, this guy made the entire lore of the show really complicated for no reason. Number 8. Throughout the entirety of the show, Klaroline was the only character that developed as a person. Everyone else either regressed or stayed the same as a person. Stefan was the exact same person from season 1 as he was in season 8. Damon was all over the place. Elena regressed as a character in every way, including personality and her as a person. There might be an argument for Bonnie growing as a person, learning from her mistakes, but that's pushing it. You would have to argue deeply about that. But Klaroline is the only clear-cut one, as in Klaroline season 1 and Klaroline season 8 are very different. And that difference is a positive difference, as in Klaroline not only grew as a character, but also grew as a person. Technically Tyler too, but I don't really consider him a main character, but yeah, Tyler too. Both characters were really awful in season 1, they were bad people. Although not evil like Damon, but they were just either annoying or just bad people completely. But then they learned from their experience and grew as people. Number 9. Remember when I said that the show should have ended with season 5? And I tried to edit out the show to make that happen? More specifically season 6, in which I said I'll remove the entire season except for Kai's storyline. Also Liz's death, but more importantly, Kai's storyline. And the reason for this is not only just because of Kai, which leads me onto the hot take itself. No, I'm not talking about Damon and Bonnie should have been a couple. I know that's very likely what you're thinking of. But it does have something to do with Bonnie. And that is, the show only going past season 5 only really benefited Bonnie. And this is because Bonnie, before season 6, in terms of writing, was not a good character. Now hear me out, I love Bonnie. On this channel, I defend Bonnie a lot. And there are people that defend Bonnie way more than I do. Referring to the stands, of course. But even with them, they should understand that this shouldn't really be a hot take, because if you love Bonnie, they should know that if you disagree with this hot take, then you're probably going to contradict yourself. Because if you love Bonnie, then you would have recognized just how badly Bonnie was treated in the show. Bonnie was done dirty. Like, remember when I said that Damon, Stefan, and Elena were ruined later on in the show? More specifically after season 3? Bonnie was ruined at the very start. We didn't realize this at first until they made Bonnie chair for the Confederacy as a black woman. And it was all downhill from there, because Bonnie was made to be a tool for the main characters, which again, because of the racial undertone, is crazy. And what I mean by Bonnie is a tool for the main characters is that Bonnie was a plot device first and a character second. Like, Bonnie as a character can be described by 3 things. She's strong and independent, she's insecure about magic, and she hates Damon because Damon is the reason why her grandma died. That's it. That's the depths of Bonnie's character. Which is crazy to me, because Bonnie is an intriguing character. In fact, I would say that Bonnie is just as intriguing as the 100+ vampires. But the only time they try to explore her character is by chucking her into a useless relationship. Like with Jeremy. Who cares about Jeremy? I will have to do a whole video on this because there's a lot more I can say. but really and truly they wasted an intriguing character, which was played by a really good actress, for like 5 seasons straight. Well, now on to number 10, and to cap things off. The last 4 seasons of the Vampire Diaries is almost as bad as Legacies. And the only reason why I said almost is only because of season 6. If season 6 wasn't there, it would be just as bad as Legacies. Now the reason why I left this till last is because this is probably going to be viewed as insane. But in my opinion, Legacies only really had 2 bad seasons, season 2 and season 3. Obviously in the Vampire Diaries, season 7 is really awful. However, season 8 is not that far off from season 7. Season 1 of Legacies is just as good as season 8 of the Vampire Diaries. However, season 4 of Legacies is better than both season 8 and season 5 of the Vampire Diaries, in my opinion. The only outlier here is season 6 of the Vampire Diaries, because season 5 was really bad. The only reason why people believe that it was good was because of the first third of the season, which was a Salvatore storyline, which wasn't good to begin with. It's just entertaining. There was really only one good storyline in season 5, which was the Catherine and Nadia storyline. I've already said this multiple times, but everything else around it was catastrophically bad. The Traveler storyline was really bad. Again, like I mentioned earlier, Klaroline slept with Klaus, which is well out of character for her. And then we go into season 7, which is the lowest of the low. And then you have season 8. Season 8 has some promise, but again, everything about season 8 felt flat. So yeah, my opinion, the last 4 seasons of the Vampire Diaries is almost as bad as Legacies.